Bitcoin has achieved another all-time high. Today we'll break it down for you and where the market could be trending. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into the show. Let's go with it. Today I want to thank our sponsor, and that is Tangem, a place where you guys can begin self-custody. And guys, one of the things that happens in these very volatile markets, and of course we saw Bitcoin go up a little bit yesterday, is when we see these violent moves, exchanges start to have a little bit of a problem. So think about that in your strategy of how you're dealing with your own self-custody plan. Check it out, use our link. All right, let's get into it. A couple of points I want to hit on. First, of course, Bitcoin reaches its all-time high, 112K, with an extra $500 on top. And guess what? We're looking at shorts now and what the price might be for Bitcoin leading into July. And right now, it's looking like 115 is the consensus, around 86% over on Polymarket. That, along with what's happening in the short side of things, 192 mil Bitcoin shorts liquidated. This was just yesterday. That was the past 60 minutes. Then you go over and look at this morning, another 50 million liquidated in another 60 minutes. So liquidations are definitely going in. Not the time to be shorting Bitcoin. It looks like we may be on to something big. A lot of Bitcoiners right now are underprepared, according to this article, that's saying possible 133 price tag in September, even though we are seeing a lot of indications that we could see even a more violent move up. What would that do to the traditional markets and how they're perceiving? Because remember, the last time we've really seen these violent moves in the situation of Bitcoin really was all the way back into the last bull run in 2021. And a lot of the mainstream media wasn't really tracking crypto. It was, still the bad guys, industry. That completely has changed now. So I'm just kind of curious how they're going to respond to it. I think you're going to end up getting a lot more input from this. One thing, a couple of things within the article, traders now buying calls signaling maybe underexposed. That's an interesting situation. Trading signals now suggesting short-term breakout with a 60% probability for further upside over the next 2 months. And that is a big deal because we do get more traditional investors and even retail coming in on this. And if we get more institutions, again, this puts more pressure on price. And I think this, of course, is the thing to watch right now. Trump, of course, is out there bull posting. Tech stocks, industrial stocks, NASDAQ hit all-time high records. Now he wants a rate cut. So that's what it's boiling down to, is a challenge between him and Chair Powell to get these rates down before the markets do get hit. I want to go over and play a clip of Tom Lee talking about NVIDIA, because this has a lot of bearing on how this market may play out. Take a look.
Well, to me, NVIDIA being the most valuable company in the S&P makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's scarce. I mean, how many NVIDIAs are there in the world, right? There's 50,000 stocks. There's one NVIDIA. And so it is scarcer than like Da Vinci. So I do think the multiple at around 30 times is actually not that extended given how important they are to the AI ecosystem. So I think there's earnings visibility and then there's multiple expansion potential.
All right, I like Tom, of course, has been really aggressive on his bull positions with tech in the past. And, listen, there's been a lot of tech companies and tech analysts that have looked at NVIDIA and said maybe this train's going to stop at some point. Tom Lee not seeing that right now. If you look at Goldman Sachs, where the S&P is going to be by the end of the year, this gets interesting because, as we've talked about here on the channel, is that it appears that the trend may not be stopping for the S&P. Question is how that liquidity is going to move into risk markets. Take a look at this clip.
We got to start off with the news. You're changing your S&P price targets for 3 months, 6 months, and also the next year. Let's do the 12-month horizon, 6,900, double-digit, about a 10, 11% rise from here. What is the biggest challenge to the market moving higher right now? We've seen tariffs shake up the market. Obviously, the April lows were very clear that investors got nervous about tariffs. Now they seem to be shrugging them off. Are tariffs still an issue? And do we need to see the Fed cut to get to your price target for the end of this year? Again, 6,600.
Yeah, earnings are the most important driver for stocks. Last time we spoke, we were constructive on stocks, and that was because of the view that earnings would continue to drive the market higher. That hasn't changed. And for that reason, the key question now is how much will tariffs affect the earnings outlook? We're about to start that second quarter earnings season, and the key thing to be focused on for investors is what companies say about their ability to protect margins given these increased tariff rates.
All right, so as you can see there, these are all of the S&P targets right there from some of the top Wall Street analysts out there, Morgan Stanley, Citi, Bank of America, et cetera. all of which have been pointing in this direction. So again, this is a very positive situation for the markets in general. The real question is again, how do we see liquidity start to pour into the crypto market? Total spot Bitcoin ETF volumes now surpassing 4 billion today. This, I think, will help, even though I think spot is not having as much of an impact on Bitcoin price, even though we are seeing Bitcoin continue to move up. I think the real question is how do we see, investment advisors starting to allocate funds? Because when you look at some of the things that it's happening right now, Bitcoin holders right now, still BlackRock leading the way, that's a big sign, when you think about the industry as a whole. If BlackRock is the one that's out there leading, a lot of investment advisors are probably saying, wait a minute, maybe we need to be looking at that a little bit more. And this is a chart they're looking at a lot more, and that is risk return on profile of the asset classes. If you look at everything out there, everything's kind of clustered into that one area: gold, S&P, REITs, etc. Look where Bitcoin is. This, of course, gets into a frame of shifting thinking, and that is what you have to pay attention to, especially as we see companies coming in and saying, hey, we're going to start really playing the angle of acquiring more Bitcoin into our treasuries. And that's only going to drive the price up and the valuation of these companies, much like what we've seen with MicroStrategy. This is now happening with Ethereum. And of course, the US Treasury has officially removed its broker reporting rules. This is a big deal because now it's kind of pretty much a no holds barred situation from a market standpoint. All of this very positive for where the market is going. I want to go to another clip because this is another big, I think a big indicator of where Wall Street's head is right now. This is Cathie Wood. Take a look.
People ask me, what's the biggest surprise? Circle going public. I really thought that Bitcoin would serve the role that stablecoins are going to serve. I think because of that IPO, I don't know if it was the safety that being backed 100% by Treasury securities and AI and crypto together as we go towards agentic, also with DeFi threatening all of them as well. They better get with the program. So you're right, light switch. It's almost like a light switch. We think this could become one of the most important financial services institutions in the world.
I think it will become, it's already there. The potential now is getting the Genius Act through what we're going to see in DC most likely next week. With Crypto Week coming up, I think there's going to be a lot of other indicators that are starting to look at the greater and more broad markets as a whole. All of this starts to push into Ethereum as one of the cornerstones versus Solana. Now, Tom Lee breaks this down a little bit of why. Take a look.
The stablecoin is the ChatGPT moment for crypto. Circle has blown the doors open. There's a lot of interest now on Wall Street getting involved with Ethereum and building stablecoins. That's 30% of Ethereum's network usage today.
Right. But it is a technology in addition to, it's not just like Bitcoin, which is sort of seen as
that's right.
Almost a gold. It is a technology. I mean, it could lose market share as well, couldn't it, to the likes of Solana?
That's true, but when you see like the JP Morgan stablecoin, it's being built on Ethereum.
Right.
Robinhood is building their tokenizing business on Ethereum. So as what they call a layer one, Ethereum is like the preferred choice for Wall Street. It already is more than 60% of all the tokenized real world assets, and I think that share is growing. If stablecoins grow to over 2 trillion, as Treasury Secretary Bessent predicts, that's an exponential usage of Ethereum and the Ethereum token.
All right, so Tom Lee is hitting on all the markers of what is identifying ETH as the market leader. One thing I would disagree with him on, and I still look at this, I know there's a lot of major analysts that are still looking at that 2 trillion mark. I think it's more. When you look at the exposure of where stablecoins are going to be against the US dollar and how we're going to have countries around the world now have access to the US dollar in a very easy way, I think it changes things quite a bit. And he is right about ETH being the cornerstone and the backbone of that. He mentioned Robinhood, who announced last week, not only did they announce the writing on ETH in terms of tokenized securities, but specifically on the Arbitrum chain. So that in itself, I think, is going to have a couple of indicators moving forward. And of course, another one is that they are now allowing both staking on ETH and Solana inside Robinhood. This is getting unusual because I had just a general person the other day start to ask me about staking inside their Robinhood app. And this is somebody that had never invested in crypto before, and they're starting to ask those kinds of questions because they're seeing these yields. They think dividend. That's the way that they're looking at that. So, guys, when you see that along with everything else that's going on, there is a lot of trends starting to play into this. Alibaba-backed firm is now eyeing a partnership with Circle. This is going to get interesting because it will get into retail. And this is the thing that I have said all along. When retail flows in to USDC or stablecoins, we are talking about 10 to 40 trillion in terms of opportunity. That's the kind of market that is there. Forget these 2 trillion just utilizing stablecoins as a means of exchange. This is shifting the dynamic around all of this. Look at the value of what they're talking about. This is Ant International right now. The company's global unit generated nearly $3 billion in revenue last year. So back to the point, guys, what we're talking about here, this is one company. Just within that, think all of Shopify, think of all e-commerce, think of all of retail in person. You start to get your head around where this is going. And guess what? All of this setting in the ETH ecosystem. So big one for sure. Let's take a look at fear and greed. The index chart right now starting to trend up to around 58, even though not necessarily that high, with ETH starting to bump a potential run at 3K, and of course, Bitcoin hitting its all-time high. If you look at the overall altcoin index right now, again, very low right now at 27. So definitely in a maybe wait and see moment for a lot of this. And of course, the ones that you got to look at, Pengu's kind of in there, Virtual still up, SPX, Deep, Hype still in there. So there's some good quality ones in here as well. So let me know what you guys are doing in terms of altcoins. What are you prepping up for in the comments down below? And by the way, if you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure and take a time real quick. Just hit that subscribe button right now and do that because we are getting ready to see a run here. And here's why. 7.4 trillion now setting on the sideline. This is money market. This is active cash. This isn't invested in anything else. It is sitting literally in active accounts waiting to deploy into something. In fact, most of these investors are chomping at the bit to figure out how can they outperform the 4 to 5% yield that they're getting within these markets. Watch for this, guys. This could be a big one for sure. The other thing that starts to shift around a little bit is next week with Crypto Week. Here's kind of a new one. And this, of course, Eleanor Terrett scooping in on this, the banking GOP now planning to drop its market structure discussion draft next week after, remember, this was a little bit of a false start, and then now it's going into next week during Crypto Week. So all this very good news for crypto in general. Taking a look at the markets, obviously after a fairly violent situation right there on the 1 hour, still continuing high and holding at 113, another all-time high as of recording. So getting very active right now. Ethereum is the one we're watching, starting to bump possibly to that 3K mark. This is the one you've got to keep an eye on. SWI up 11%, moving very actively. And then you get into some of the others like Arbitrum. Is this one of those that's starting to break out because of the news starting to set in mainstream? Remember, tokenized securities is starting to become a darling of Wall Street. Once they figure out how Robinhood is doing this, you're going to see some action here on this one. All right, so I want to go down and look at the treasury companies within crypto right here. MicroStrategy, hang in there, Master. BMNR, this is Tom Lee's. After a heavy valuation, remember, this is 8x of what their core value is. Then you look at SBET. This one might be getting ready to break out just with Joseph Lubin and what his strategy is around hinting some potential collaborations, which we'll have more on that possibly next week on a very special episode. The one, of course, I'm watching is both SBET and also BTCS. BTCS up again from a recovery right there around 420 yesterday. So some interesting things that could align again back with Ethereum, with what's happening with Bitcoin. Be on the lookout, guys. We are in for a very, very quick week. So make sure and join the Diamond Circle. It's the best place to get additional content from us. Also, follow me on X at Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on The Paul Barron Show.